Well, here we are. We have ourselves two trade updates with the Montreal Canadiens. We're going over onto the latest 32 Thoughts podcast. Elliotte Friedman, Kyle Bukauskas, they give us a scoop. And we're also going over onto responsiblegambling.org because Marco D'Amico published himself an article that also gives us a scoop. In fact, let's talk about the RG article first, and then we'll dive into the Elliotte Friedman update because I think they work hand in hand, better so in that order. So, without further ado, we're talking about the Canadiens and we're talking about trades because, according to one NHL source, there are at least 3 teams who are closely watching Jake Evans and his strong start with the Montreal Canadiens. Jake Evans, eh? Okay, that's an interesting name to toss out as a potential trade target. Admittedly, I'm kind of surprised to see him doing as well as he is. He's got 5 points in 11 games played so far, which isn't necessarily, amazing, but for a guy who's technically supposed to be a fourth-line player, I mean, that's not bad. Not bad in the slightest. He would be getting a career year since he is on pace for 37 points. 15 goals, too. That'd be awesome for Jake Evans. But he's 28 years old. He is signed on till the end of this season, making $1.7 million a year. Jake Evans isn't necessarily the most flashy guy, but he is a lot more of a stable guy. And out of all the Canadiens forwards that have not necessarily shown off too well at the beginning of the year, it seems like you can always count on Jake Evans to give you, at the very least, something. So let's go over onto the article and read what it is Marco D'Amico has to say. The Canadiens have had a bumpy start to their season, but Jake Evans has been a model of consistency so far, and teams have taken notice. According to a responsible gambling NHL source, as the Canadiens continue to look for a starting forward, some of their forwards have begun appearing on early season trade boards. The Canadiens have 2 of their centers, Evans and Dvorak, coming up as pending free agents this summer, and they have some important decisions to make about their future. The Canadiens have options in terms of being able to move either, but I'm hearing Jake Evans' name a lot more so far than Dvorak, said the source. The Canadiens are not in a rush to move Evans right now, as he's excellent for them on the penalty kill. And I just wanted to say this so far, I mean the article talks about it too, but Jake Evans or Christian Dvorak, yeah, of course Jake Evans' name is tossed around there more. He's better. Straight up. I think Christian Dvorak has a higher ceiling, and there's a lot more that you could expect out of Dvorak, but based off of what we've seen so far in 24-25, when you just need a guy who's good enough to handle what it is you throw at him, Jake Evans is that guy. Christian Dvorak in particular had a really bad game yesterday, and throughout the season, a lot of people have sort of come to this conclusion that he's definitely not a $4 or $5 million player like maybe some of us thought he was back when he had been brought on to the Montreal Canadiens. Remember the entire Jesperi Kotkaniemi offer sheet thing? Yeah, that's the reason Dvorak is on the Habs, because they use the assets from that offer sheet compensation to get him. So now he's here, he's making $4-something million. We think he's supposed to be better than he is, but Jake Evans is playing lower in the lineup, he's getting less money, and he's just more consistent. So obviously, in my mind, it makes sense that teams would be interested in Evans more than Christian Dvorak. And the article even says here, Evans has been the model of consistency for a club that has been somewhat inconsistent so far. Evans has scored 2 goals and 5 points in 11 games, while spearheading one of the best penalty kill units this season. The jump in offensive production combined with a mature defensive game has created a lot of buzz around Evans. I know of at least 3 teams that are paying close attention to Jake Evans at the moment, said the source. He's playing some of his best hockey to start the season, he's a leader out there, and he's an ace on special teams. It's a contract year too. Contending teams will look for that as a rental and usually pay well. So hey, I think if this is the case here, if this continues throughout the rest of the season heading into the trade deadline, then I think Jake Evans might be on his way out. And it's kind of a shame too to see him leave in this kind of a capacity since he was a 7th round pick by the Canadiens a decade ago. Just noting his entire story, how he came out of nowhere, he was this random dude, he was drafted out of the OJHL, so Ontario Junior A with the St. Michael's Buzzards, and then he formed himself a career with the University of Notre Dame and the NCAA. He was really strong there. and eventually found himself in the Montreal Canadiens system with the Laval Rocket, and now he's a full-time Hab. He has been for the past few years. You rarely see that out of 7th round guys. You rarely see that out of players drafted from the OJHL. So for Jake Evans, he really formed himself a career out of nothing, really. Like, I still remember making prospect videos for the Canadiens in 2018 and 2019 and being like, yeah, this Jake Evans guy, he's young, he's pretty good, he's solid, he's a nice player from the NCAA, 7th round guy, so you don't really expect much out of him. And now he's one of the top penalty killing guys on the Montreal Canadiens, and he's one of their top trade chips too. Speaking about those trades, let's go over onto a tweet made by NHL Watcher that talks about some of the latest Elliotte Friedman 32 Thoughts updates. Because this is what Fridge goes out there and speaks about on the show. Montreal is in a danger zone now where you are worried about making a deal that you regret. Friedman emphasizes that this rebuild is not a process that you can speed up. You have to go through the pain unless a player like Artyom Panarin falls into your lap like New York. And that was also expanded upon in the replies. I mean, sure, Panarin was the biggest thing, but the Rangers also won the draft lottery twice. They had Adam Fox force a trade to them, and they had an elite young goalie to turn to. It's not really a method for anyone else to try and follow. It was a unique situation. And yes, that's exactly it. The Rangers got lucky because New York is New York, and I don't want to see anybody going out there and dismissing that because Adam Fox wanted to play for New York. Artyom Panarin wanted to play for New York. The Rangers won 2 draft lotteries. They won 2nd overall 2019, 1st overall 2020. There's a lot going on there. And sure, Capo Caco isn't really like a game changer right now for New York. His 2nd overall status not really holding much pedigree anymore. Actually, I don't know if I should say that. He's got 7 points in 9 games so far. That's not bad. I mean, that's the same point production as Kreider and Zibanejad, so I guess he's doing pretty all right, right? But still, the rest of the team got kind of lucky. Lafreniere's doing well. They got a lot of guys that wanted to be there that are superstar caliber players, and they had a goalie that was awesome. Now they're a powerhouse, but the Montreal Canadiens, as we had spoken about in the video just a few hours ago, it took Colorado 10 years to win the Stanley Cup after drafting Nathan MacKinnon 1st overall. They sucked for 4 years after that. The Habs drafted 1st overall just 2 years ago, so sucking a little bit more, getting James Hagan's 1st overall in 2025, getting whomever else is going to be 1st overall in 2026, then that's when the Canadiens can really start to put together those results, where Slafkovsky is going to be 22 years old, where Cole Caulfield's going to be 25, Nick Suzuki is going to be a prime old dude at 28 years old at that point. 27, 28, right? So he's going to be in his prime. I guess that's sort of the timeline, right? And for Jake Evans, who's 28 right now, I guess he doesn't necessarily fit with that, so it would be pretty useful for the Canadiens to trade him away and get some assets, get some picks or whatever. This rebuild's going to take a while, guys. And Elliotte Friedman's saying, yeah, they want to be in that longer-term-ish kind of mindset. They don't really want to sacrifice much by making a short-term move right now. They're in danger zone territory. They don't want to make a trade where they regret. Are there any trades so far that the Habs are regretting right now? I'm not really too sure. I mean, Romanov's playing pretty alright in New York, but I don't think sacrificing Kirby Dach is that big of a deal there. I'm not sure. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about these trade updates for the Canadiens. What are your thoughts on Jake Evans and the interest surrounding him? Seems like teams will like him way more than Christian Dvorak, which is understandable considering a lot of Canadiens fans like him more than Dvorak too. Dvorak, though, is a lot more expensive, so maybe that's a much tougher sell for other National Hockey League teams. What do you think the trade return should be for a guy like Jake Evans, assuming he gets traded tomorrow? And what are your thoughts on the idea that the Canadiens are in that danger zone? They don't want to regret any sort of a trade. I think it's hard to regret a trade if you're getting, let's just say, draft picks for a rental. Let's say it's Jake Evans for a 3rd or whatever. It's hard to regret a trade like that. You don't even know if the guy's going to re-sign with your organization at the end of the day. And if he really wanted to, he would. You know that saying? If he wanted to, he would. It's kind of the label that's tossed around when it comes to dating nowadays, but if Jake Evans wanted to remain a Canadian, he could get traded somewhere else, he can play in the playoffs, he can do really well in a penalty-killing unit that goes to the 2nd or 3rd round, and then he signs in Montreal again in the offseason. He pulls off the old Antoine Vermette, since that does happen sometimes. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Jake Evans and the trade interest, as well as the danger zone for Montreal. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.